Hello and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. Today I'll be sharing with you the 25 books that I plan to get to in 2025. 2025 is going to be the year of reading for me, even though the past 2 years I have not kept up with my reading hobby. But right now I'm really in the mood for reading, so I am really hoping this enthusiasm for reading keeps up throughout the rest of the year, but I have a good feeling that it will. So I'm going to be sharing with you the 25 books that I plan to read this year. No guarantees that I'll get to all of these, but these are all books that I am prioritizing, so I probably will get through them this entire year. So why don't we just go through all the books that I plan to get to this year. So I did pick 25 books, but some of these are a part of series, and I have multiple books in that series that I haven't read yet, so I'm kind of lumping the series together. So there's technically more than 25 books here, but you know what I mean. We're counting series as like one book. So one of those is, what's this series called? I think it's just called The Kiss Quotient. It doesn't have a specific name. So I have read the first book, The Kiss Quotient. I've read it twice. The reason I have read it twice is because the second time I read it, I had planned to get through the rest of the books in this series, but like it had been years since I had read this, so I needed to refresh my memory on everything that happened in here. But then I never got to the rest of the books. I got into a reading slump, and I just never got to the other two books. So I'm gonna have to reread this one for a third time in order to get to these. This is why nowadays I binge read series, because if I wait too long to read the rest of the books in the series, I will never get to the second book. It's just how I am. So I'm going to read The Kiss Quotient again and then get to the rest of the books in this series. It's just a trilogy, so there's not too many books. And actually, this is a companion series, so each book can be read as a standalone, but I still want to read them consecutively because I'm just weird like that. So I'm going to reread The Kiss Quotient for a third time. And then this time I will finish off this series because it needs to happen. So the next book after that will be The Bride Test and then The Heart Principle. And I've heard these two are really good, so I just need to get through them. I also really need to continue on with the Black Dagger Brotherhood series by J.R. Ward. I read the first 7 books in this series. I need to get to the rest of them. There are, I don't even know how many books are in this series. I think over 20 books. It is such a long series, but from what I have read from this one, these books are really, really good. And I just never continued on to the 8th book. Actually, I take that back. I started this and then I just never picked it back up again. Not that I want to DNF it for good. I just, got in a slump and never went back into it, which is unfortunate because every single one of these books follows different characters. It's pretty much a companion series. And this book follows like my favorite character in this entire series so far. So I don't know what made me put this down and never get back to it because it was good. Like this book was really good. I just never went back into it. So that needs to change because I really, really want to read about my favorite character who is in this book. And I also hope to really plow through a lot of the books in this series this year. So we'll see how that goes. This one is a series following vampires. It's pretty old. It's been around for a long time and there's still new books coming out in this series, which is insane. Okay, this next book I am actually reading right now, so I've already crossed one of these books off my TBR list for this year, which is fantastic. I'm still going to mention it anyway because I already had this book listed originally on this list, and that is A Thousand Boy Kisses by Tillie Cole. I am over halfway through this. I read the first half of this book yesterday, and typically I don't read that much of a book in one day, so that's saying something about this one because I have been really, really enjoying this one, and I'm hoping to finish it today, but those odds are looking pretty good. Like right after I'm done filming this, I'm going to start reading this again. It is very good. It is very emotional though, and I knew that going into this book, and I had been putting this one off for a while because of how emotional I've heard it is, and for a while I haven't been in the mood for a really sad story, so I've been putting it off, but I've gotten to it finally, and it's been really good. And this one is basically a childhood friends to lovers story, which is one of my favorite tropes. It follows these two characters named Rune and Poppy, and Rune has to leave town back to Norway, where his family is from, which he's very disheartened by and distressed over because he is in love with Poppy and he has to leave her. So 2 years pass, and then he comes back into town, and him and Poppy have had a falling out, so he has to face her again, and he discovers the reason why she broke off things with him and ghosted him, and the reasons are very, very sad. So yeah, this one has been an emotional roller coaster. I'm sure the last half of this book is going to be even more emotional, so we'll see how I fare today. At the end of today, I'll probably be in tears over this book. So we'll just see how it goes. Next, I have Regretting You by Colleen Hoover. So there are actually a lot of Colleen Hoover books that I'm hoping to get to this year. I really want to finish off her entire catalog. But the book that I am very much prioritizing is this one, because this is the one remaining book of hers that I have to read that sounds the most interesting to me. I do know it follows a mother and her daughter, and I think it follows their individual relationships. I need to read the back of this because I just cannot remember what this one is about. I just know the vibes of it sound really interesting to me. Let's see, I'll just read it aloud. It says, Morgan Grant and her 16-year-old daughter Clara would like nothing more than to be nothing alike. Morgan is determined to prevent her daughter from making the same mistakes as she did by getting pregnant and married way too young. Morgan put her own dreams on hold. Clara doesn't want to follow in her mother's footsteps. Her predictable mother doesn't have a spontaneous bone in her body. With warring personalities and conflicting goals, Morgan and Clara find it increasingly difficult to coexist. The only person who can bring peace to the household is Chris, Morgan's husband, Clara's father and the family anchor. But that peace is shattered when Chris is involved in a tragic and questionable accident. The heartbreaking and long-lasting consequences will reach far beyond just Morgan and Clara. While struggling to rebuild everything that crashed around them, Morgan finds comfort in the last person she expects to, and Clara turns to the one boy she's been forbidden to see. With each passing day, new secrets, resentment, and misunderstandings make mother and daughter fall further apart. So far apart, it might be impossible for them to ever fall back together. Okay, so this one deals with a tragedy, which is very much Colleen Hoover. So basically it looks like it's about this mother and daughter just trying to come back together after facing a tragedy. So yeah, this one sounds emotional as well. But I am really looking forward to getting into it. I've heard really good things about it, so very excited for it. So this one has been on my TBR for way too long. I need to get to it this year, and that is Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. This one is an alien romance. I think the only alien romance I've ever read is the Lux series by Jennifer L. Armentrout, but I haven't read any other alien romances besides that. I hear this one is very steamy. Which I probably should get to this one really soon because I have been in the mood for steamy books, and none of the books I've been reading lately have been steamy, so I think I need to get to this one maybe in February. We'll see, but I've heard pretty good things about it. It's the first book in a series. Love this cover. This series had original covers that looked very cringy. These covers are so much better. I've actually had this book since I lived in Texas, and that was 3 years ago, so I need to knock this one off my TBR as soon as possible. Next, I have Captive Prince. This one is a fantasy, but from what I've heard, it is a very dark, I wouldn't even say dark romance because I've heard it's not even a romance. It's just a very dark and heavy book. It does deal with, I think, a prince and his slave and their relationship, and that's pretty much all I know about it. I think I'm just gonna go into this one blind. I just know the vibes of it. The content matter of this one just really intrigues me. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I feel like this one is gonna be quite a ride based on the content that I hear is in it. I'm just really curious about it. I will read the first book, and if I like it, then I will get the other books. I think this one is a trilogy. Oh, I think so. I think there's like 3 books in this one. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Next, I have Archer's Voice. I know this one is a romance, and I think it deals with like really heavy subjects. I feel like a lot of the books I have on my TBR for this year deal with a lot of heavy subjects. I'm just in the mood for that kind of thing. I've heard great things about this one. It is the first in a series, so I'm really excited to get to it. Next, I have Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. I think I mentioned this in my, I did mention this one in my beginning of the year book tag. I got this beautiful edition from Walmart, and I'm so excited to read this book just to like have this edition in my hands constantly because it's absolutely gorgeous. This one is a romance. I know it takes place in a small town, and that's pretty much all I know about it. So yeah, we'll see what this one is about when I get to it. Next, I have Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. This one I got from Book of the Month. I have never gotten any books from them before. If you don't know, Book of the Month is a subscription service where you get 1 book a month picked by the folks who work over there. So I picked Phantasma from the catalog that they have. This one is, I think it's a fantasy. I know it takes place in New Orleans. It's about this woman and her sister gets kidnapped by this game, and it's this game where it has certain challenges that she has to go through. She meets a guy there who I think I hear is a ghost. So yeah, that's like that's all I've heard about it. So it sounds really good. I've been really wanting to get to this one. The second book comes out in April, I think. So I'm probably going to get to this one in March just so that I don't have to wait too long to read the sequel if I end up liking this. So yeah, this one is definitely a priority out of all of these. I'm really looking forward to it. And next I have Quicksilver by Kelly Hart. I did mention this one in my beginning of the year video. We're going to mention it again. This one is a really popular fantasy that's going around right now. I think I am going to wait a bit to get to this one this year because from what I've seen on Goodreads, the second book in this series comes out in November, and I don't want to read this one right now because I know I would have to reread it again in order to prepare for the sequel, and I don't want to read this chunky of a book in the same year. So I'm gonna wait until like later in the year to read this one, but I am looking forward to it because I've heard great things, and I have been very in the mood for fantasy lately, so I feel like this is one I'm gonna be really into. And next I have Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton, another one I mentioned in my last video. This one is a dark romance. I know it's about a girl who is getting stalked. So yeah, very much a dark romance. I've heard a lot of polarizing things about this one, but the fact that it is so infamous makes me very curious about it. So this is one I really want to get to really soon. I know it is the first in a series. I think there's 2 books out, and I don't think there's any more books coming out in this series. I think it's just a duology. So if I like this one, I will for sure get to the sequel. Next, I have a book that I just recently hauled, and that is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. I got this gorgeous special edition of it. The original edition of this book has a illustrated cover, and I'm not a huge fan of the cover of the original version. So I was really happy when I saw this special edition at Walmart because it's a lot better than the standard edition of this book. This is another one that is very, very infamous. I do also know this one has been going around on Book Talk for a while now, so it is very popular. All I know about it is that it's about these 2 characters and they have to share an ice rink. One of them, the guy, is a hockey player and the girl is an ice skater, and they're forced to like share an ice rink, and I guess that makes for some forced proximity. They have to hang out together. I think it's enemies to lovers too, but I can't quite remember. So yeah, that's all I know about it. I will definitely pick this up when I'm in the mood for like a really easy read. Definitely when I'm in the mood for a contemporary romance. So really excited for this one. All right, now the 3 books in a series that I have to get to this year, and I plan to get to them next month. I can't hold this microphone and pick them all up. I can try. It's like lifting a 30-pound weight bell. You know what? We'll just do one at a time. So that is the Empyrean series, first book being Fourth Wing. I'm sure a lot of you already know about this series. It is everywhere right now. I cannot go on my Instagram without seeing a post that has to do with Onyx Storm, because Onyx Storm just came out. It is everywhere. I am like hoping so badly that I do not get spoiled, because Onyx Storm is everywhere. So far I haven't though, so let's hope. So yeah, I need to reread Fourth Wing. I have already read this book. I read it exactly a year ago, but of course I have forgotten a lot of details, so I need to reread this before getting into the other two books. The other ones being Iron Flame, which is a chunker, and then, very exciting, Onyx Storm came in the mail yesterday, so I have it. I got the limited edition. I don't know how true that is, because this one is pretty widely available, but I got the special edition version, which has the sprayed edges right here. Very long stories, but I tried to get the Target exclusive edition, and I had trouble checking out on Target's website, so that was a huge bummer. So I just settled on the deluxe edition. It was very frustrating, but I'm glad I have this one. So yeah, I will be getting back into this series this year, next month, as soon as possible, as soon as I finish what I am reading now. And then I have House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. This is the first book in the Crescent City series. I have to get to this series this year. I need to stop putting it off. I've just been so intimidated by it because I've heard how dense of a fantasy these books are, and I wish I had never heard that about these books, because it's been really putting me off reading them. But I just need to get to them and see how it goes. I love the ACOTAR series by Sarah J. Maas, so, you know, if I love those books, I'm sure I'll love these. I just need to be brave and get to them. All I know about this series is that it does have fae in it. It is an urban fantasy, and that's about it. This one is a priority. I will be getting to it within the next few months. So those are all of the physical books that I have on my TBR for this year. Now I'll go into the books that I don't own, at least not yet, but I don't own them right now. So next I have Hooked by Emily McIntyre. I have been really interested in picking up this series. This is the first book in a series, because each of the books in this series follows a different villain from a well-known story. The first one, Hooked, follows retelling of Peter Pan. So in this one, we're following, I presume, Captain Hook. And the main premise of this series is that, like, the prince or the princess of the original fairy tale falls in love with the villain of the story. I just love that idea, so I'm very, very interested in picking up these books. I hear they're so good, so I am definitely going to start this one this year. Next I have Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. I really want to start this series because it's been compared to Lights Out by Nevessa Allen, which I loved Lights Out. So if it has similar vibes as this series, I definitely want to pick it up. I love the cover of this as well. It's really enticed me to give it a try. Next I have Unsteady by Peyton Corrine. This one is about, I think it's a ice skater, like a professional ice skater, either an ice skater or a hockey player. I can't remember which profession he is in. He's in some profession that takes place on an ice rink. That's all I know. He is practicing on the ice, and during his practice, he has a panic attack, and I guess our main heroine catches him having this panic attack, and she like consoles him. That is the basis of what I know this one is about, but just that premise alone really entices me. As someone who has had panic attacks before, I feel like I could very much connect to this one, and I want to see where it goes. I've heard pretty good things about it as well from a lot of content creators who I very much trust. Says this is very good. It is the first in a series. The second book comes out this year. Can't remember when. So I'll probably read this one closer to when the second book comes out. Next, I have Fragile Sanctuary by Catherine Cowles. I have heard so many fantastic things about Catherine Cowles' books, and I have never read a single book from her. That needs to change this year. And her Sparrow Falls series is insanely popular right now, so I want to read the first book in this series this year, which is Fragile Sanctuary. This series is a romance, and that's all I can remember about it. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. And next, I have King of Wrath by Ava Huang. I read Ava Huang's Twisted series last year and really enjoyed it, so I definitely want to check out more books from her. I love the idea for this series. Each book follows the premise of the 7 deadly sins, and it's also a billionaire romance. So very much two buzzwords that I am really interested in. So yeah, gonna start this one this year for sure. And next I have Mile High by Liz Tumforty. I've heard fantastic things about this series. It is a romance series. I know that the first book, Mile High, follows a hockey player, a baseball player, some guy in some kind of sports profession. He and his team has to take a flight somewhere, and the flight attendant or pilot is like a woman who is tasked with getting the players where they need to go, and there's like a strict like no fraternizing rule between the pilot or flight attendant. I don't know what position she's in, and with the players, they cannot like be intimate together or whatnot. And obviously it's a romance, so the pilot flight attendant worker gets involved with the main guy character, and yeah, so it is a forbidden romance, and that is one of my favorite romance tropes of all time, so I have a feeling I will at least love the first book, but I do want to check out the rest of the books in this series if I love the first book. Next, I have The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. Hopefully I pronounced that last name right. This is the first book in a fantasy series. I know it follows vampires, and I think we also...
Could you try again?
I said series, and I think my watch thought I said Siri. No, Siri, that's okay. I don't need you. I don't need you.
I'm not sure I understand.
Go away. Okay, anyway. So this one does follow vampires, and I think it involves some sort of game. This is a highly popular fantasy series right now. As popular as it is, though, I have heard very mixed reviews on the series as a whole, so I don't know how I'm gonna like it, but I at least want to read the first book and see if it's something I'm into. I feel like I've heard a lot of very mixed reviews on the second book in the series, so I'm very wary of this one, but we're still going to give it a try. Okay, next I have Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. This is another series where I need to reread the first book because I already read the fine print a few years ago, but it's been so long since I read the series that I need to reread the first book. So I need to read the fine print, Terms and Conditions, and the last book, which I believe is called Final Offer. I really enjoyed the first book, the fine print, so I do want to continue on with this series. It is a romance series, and in each book we're following these three brothers, and each of them have to do a certain task in order to get the inheritance from their grandfather who recently passed away. And so in each book we're watching them fulfill that certain task. So yeah, definitely a series that I'm going to continue on with this year. Another series that I need to get back into is the Salacious Players Club series. I read Praise, which is the first book, and I really enjoy it. This series was, at least the first book, was super spicy, so it was a good time. But I definitely do need to continue on with the rest of the series. Again, I probably will reread the first book, Praise, before I continue on. The next book in the series that I have to read is book number 2, which is Eyes on Me. So yeah, definitely another one I'm going to get back into this year. Next, I have Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is the first book in her Chestnut Springs series. I feel like this is the #1 romance series that I have been hearing about lately. Everyone, at least all of the romance content creators that I know, love this series, so I am feeling very much left out because I have not read a single book from this series. I've never read a book by Elsie Silver as well, and I've heard great things about her books, so this needs to change. I need to check her out this year. I'm definitely going to get to Flawless, and if I like the first book, then I will definitely continue on with the series this year, but this series has such high praise that I am pretty certain that I'll like it. Next, I have a book that came out so long ago that I have yet to read, and that is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I can't believe I've never read a single book by this author because she is so popular. I just have never checked out her books, so I need to do that. This one, I think this is her debut novel. I could be wrong, but when I was first hearing about her, this is the book that was everywhere. So I think it's her debut, but I'm not quite sure. Because this is like one of her like original books, I definitely want to read one of her more earlier books. She has come out with a lot of books since then, but I want to start with this one. This is a romance that deals with two characters who are involved in STEM science. From what I remember from the premise, I think the heroine has to like prove to someone else that she's in a relationship, so she kisses the closest guy that she sees, like not really registering who it is. And I think the guy is like one of her, like is like an enemy, so this might be an enemies to lovers romance. That is the premise of it. It sounds very interesting, so very excited to start this one. Okay, and yeah, that's all the 25 books on my TBR for this year. That was a lot to get through. So yeah, I'm going to prioritize all of these, and I really hope that I will have read every single one of these this year. It needs to happen. The majority of these books are physical books that I own, and I really need to condense down the physical books that I own. I need to get to all of them and knock them off my TBR. I think it would be really interesting if I did a video at the end of the year looking back on this video and seeing, did I get to all these books in 2025? That's an idea for the end of the year. So future Maddie, you better have gotten through all these books this year, please, because a lot of these have been on your TBR for way too long. It is time to get to them. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I have mentioned, and if you liked them. If you didn't like them, let me know. That'll help me know which one of these I need to get to as soon as possible. I do want to mention that I am on Instagram, so if you want to follow me on there for more bookish content, bookish pictures and reels, I will have that linked in the description box. So yeah, check me out on there if you'd like. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll be back next week with a new one, so hopefully I'll see you then. Bye!